Hey man, we live and it sounds like you at a nightclub, man. What's going on, man? What's all that noise in the background, man?
Not much, man. You know how people they just having a good time on the phone, but I'm enjoying myself. How you doing tonight? You feeling good? You
Yeah,
didn't real quick. You did a show, and I'll give you credit. You did it too. You did a show last night with brother Kevin, and then you doing one tonight. So you got a lot of energy today, man.
yeah, that's back to back. Every other week I have to do that, but I might be dropping this one with you, man, because you be tripping. But yeah, this broadcast is called Adults Only. Everybody, if you're watching it, and we come on every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time, and if you look at the crawl, you're gonna see something that called "Wake Up, Minds Off," Part Two. Walls up, I should say. Walls up, minds off, Part Two. And this whole thing we're talking about tonight is going to be talking about our thesis: how many adults have given up on learning, but we can
Mm,
reclaim our pursuit of learning. Because Chaz, we have to give them hope, because
yeah.
it's not, this is not a hopeless situation, is it?
No, it's not. Like you said, we have to reiterate. We do have to give them hope. And if they apply themselves and take this information seriously, there is hope, but it just depends on the individual. But like we said, brother, we have to keep giving the people hope because we don't want them to be defeated and unmotivated.
Yeah, and it's never too late to learn. It really isn't. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you really can. But the
Yeah.
old dog got to be willing to want to get to learn so they can know a little bit more, and they got to put themselves in a position so that they can learn. Because as adults, a lot of us have given up, and we got to start looking at where we need to go, because we have a long way to go, Chaz. And
Yeah.
let's start off by talking about this, and then we'll get to the encouragement part.
5 strong signs that a person's mind is shut down. Number one, they dismiss new ideas without even listening. And this could be to the aspect of where they feel like they've learned everything. Like I said before, they got a degree, they went to Stanford, they went to Yale, they went to all these prestigious schools. So they feel like you can't teach them anything. And in fact, these people may get angry or feel some type of way if you challenge them politely about a situation. So, and some of them, brother, could be stubborn to where they just
Hmm.
saying, you know what, who are you, you young Rudy Poot? You can't tell me anything. I've been around this world for years. Who are you to tell me? And some of us get our backs up when we politely challenge another individual.
Yeah, when you look at this, it's saying that they dismiss the ideals are new. They're not old. They hold on to the old ideas, but they dismiss new ideals. And here's the killer: without even listening. In other words, they're not even listening to what you or I have to say, and we're not listening to what other people have to say. So is that's a sign that a person's mind is shut down. They have the walls up, and just like a light switch, they've shut their minds off, and that's really a sad state to be in. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it really is because if they were open and actually listen, they could find that the information is useful and it kind of can help them a little bit. But it just goes down to the person to depending on how they are, if they're open minded or if they're just closed off. Hopefully, they're not.
All right, here's another sign of a person that's an adult who's shut their minds off to learning.
Number two, avoidance of conversations that challenge them. They don't like anyone questioning them, especially if it's a theory or some kind of information that they found. If you actually Google it and backtrack to see what they say to see if it was actually true, these people get upset and they get agitated and they get annoyed. They don't like things that challenge them because they're so comfortable. They don't want anyone to pop their bubble, if you will, because they feel like if you do that, you're questioning or you're trying to challenge them. But these discussions do need to be had, brother.
And I'm gonna tell you, Chaz, one of the reasons that they avoid the conversations that challenge them is because they know that they don't know. They know that they're lying, because a good test of a conversation is to let somebody challenge that, And I don't mean challenge it in hollering and cursing, but ask questions. Say like, where did you get that from? That's interesting. And then you keep asking questions. But a lot of us, we get angry, we want to fight, we use vulgarity
Yeah.
because we don't like to be challenged, because in our hearts, we know we haven't done our due diligence. We haven't done our research enough. So therefore, we get angry and we want to throw up the fist and have fisticuffs, because we know that the questions that we are hit with, they cannot withstand the test of time. How about saying hello to some of the people that's in this broadcast tonight with us, Chaz? And here we go.
Absolutely. Sister Barbara fires in here. She says Hotep Kings with an emoji. We appreciate her. Sister Mashana fires in here. She says good evening. We appreciate her. Sister Barbara says a changing world calls for growth and knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
I want to say something about that, Chad. She says a changing world calls for growth of knowledge, growth in knowledge. She's absolutely correct. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that the truth changes, because the
Right.
truth remains. But a
Right.
lot of the old stuff that we've been taught, a lot of that unnecessary tradition that won't stand the test of time, we got to challenge that. We got to let it go, and we have to change. And I think that's the key. A lot of us have become old stogies. We don't want to, we don't want to change, man. We want to be the same that we were 10, 15 years ago. And that's an indictment on us as a people. And this is why this is important, that we realize that we've got to change, because the world is changing.
Yeah, and that's why I think this technology, as before I read, she says knowledge is free. Pay attention. But on her previous comment, that's why I always say, with all this technology and stuff, this is all knowledge. This is all things that are going to evolve. Now we got Chat GBT, we got Google, we got all these things, and if you use these things, you can expand your knowledge. And she's totally spot on with that comment.
And I want to play on this word knowledge, because we're talking about adults who have shut their minds off to learning. This is part two. But I really want to look at that. She says knowledge is free. Pay attention. You know, that's true in a sense, but it's going to cost you something, because the question is, when you look at that concept of knowledge, be careful what we're calling knowledge, because that, to me, you know, we can say knowledge, but is it really knowledge? Some of it, not that she's not right, but some of the stuff we're calling knowledge, Chazz, it's really not knowledge, man. We call it knowledge. Like if a guy go to the pen and he gets out and he uses big words because he's been studying since he's been in the pen for the last 3 years, or a person goes to some kind of institution, they come back and they use words that make people feel good. We say, man, he got a lot of knowledge. He doesn't have knowledge. He's just using words that he learned, because when you asked him, what do those words mean in the context of our discussion, you're going to find out that he doesn't really know a lot.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, with her comment where she said knowledge is free, like, meaning you really don't have to go in your wallet and give a debit card. Like, you got Google, like I keep saying, you got Chat GBT, you got the library, you got books, you got magazines. All these places, especially at the library, that's free. You go in there, you can research. All these things I think she's saying is free, from the aspect of you don't have to pay $50 for this information, basically.
Well said. Here's sign 3 of a person who shut their minds down, especially us adults.
Sign 3, they stop asking questions. If a person never asks when, what, where, who, or why, they definitely have stopped learning. Yeah, you should always be asking these questions. You know, who told you these things? When was this founded? Why did this happen? If you just are gullible and you just agree with everything, then we're going to know that you're not doing your own due diligence. In fact, that person knows they can get over on you. But you should always be asking these questions to make sure that that person is telling you the truth. You don't want to be lied to.
Yeah, because a lot of times when we get with people, depending on who they are, if they're an entertainer or our favorite sports athlete, whatever they say, we believe them. If it's a president, a crooked president, whatever he says, people's going to listen to him. If it's a guru, whatever that guru says, they're never going to ask questions. They're going to defend what he says, and they don't even know what he's saying. If it's a rabbi, whatever he says, they're going to not ask questions. If there's a priest or if there's a preacher, in fact, in many instances, instead of asking questions, we are agreeing. Well. Yes, sir. And this is what we are, Chazz. And you know this stuff is going on, and you know this stuff is ridiculous. It's really absurd, but we've got to stop this, man. What's wrong with a question, man?
And I want to touch or piggyback off what you said about the preachers. Now, that's where a lot of people get swindled, and that's where these false prophets and false teachers are coming in, because if they're not studying to show themselves approved, or if they're not asking the pastor questions politely, then you're going to get swindled. So that's why you should be asking him in a polite way if you're learning from him. But I totally agree with what you said, where they're just, eating it up and not even asking questions. questions.
And they're scared, Chaz. Many of them they're afraid. They're shaking in their boots because you better not ask a question. And this is why we have a lot of people whose minds have been infiltrated with nonsense because we're afraid to ask a question. There's nothing wrong with that. And what the things that we hear, the nonsense that we hear, you would think that many of us should have questions coming every 5 seconds because a lot of that stuff is ridiculous, Chaz.
Yeah. Yeah. Brother Ray fires in here. He says, good evening. We appreciate you, Brother Ray, for logging in. Appreciate you. Sister Barbara fires back in here. She says, dismissing the fact that the 4th of July isn't our Independence Day. And the more I bring it up to some of these ninjas, the less they pay me any attention. Stuck in old traditions, ignorant of history, and doesn't care to know or to do better. Yeah, and that's something that we're all going to go through. We all know that the 4th of July is here pretty soon, and a lot of these people, you can't get through to them. In fact, they're going to think something is wrong with me, something is wrong with you, something is wrong with Sister Barbara. If we politely tell them, the 4th of July isn't what we think. We were free in June 19th and telling them the information, but they don't want to hear this. So the sister is spot on to where they are going to celebrate the 4th of July. In fact, don't you even question them because that's just how they are.
Yeah, and this is one of the signs when the mind is shut down because they've been doing it for so long. They really, in their hearts, they know that that's not a good holiday for the African American, but they do it anyway out of tradition. They want to go get new clothes for the 4th, go see the fireworks, go do sparkles, but yet they don't realize that makes them look really silly, man. But they don't know because they don't really care. As the sister said, they're going to keep on dismissing the truth. And this is what happens when we talk about signs to let us know that older people, us adults, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Sign 4. They rely only on the media and social media for all their answers. And that's true as well. In the young group, the young teenagers and the 20, 30, 40-year-olds, we are hooked on social media. It's okay to get some of your information from social media. But when you're not backtracking, when you're not doubling up and saying, okay, this content creator taught me this, let me double check to make sure that he was spot on or she was spot on. But if we're just only relying on them, not fact checking, and then we go out in the public and we tell people this information, and that person that you told knows that that's not accurate, you're going to look like a fool. That's why you shouldn't always rely on them. Do your own research to make sure that they're telling you the truth.
And once we see a breaking story or we see something going on, instead of doing our own research, we grab this thing here and we start, looking to see who said what about it. And the consensus is, if there's a consensus, we go with those in the majority, because this is what happens when adults turn their minds off, especially us African-American adults, where we have stopped learning and the walls have gone up, and yet the minds have been shut down. Let's go to the next sign to show when a person that's an adult have shut their minds off and they will not learn.
Sign 5. They mock or belittle others who challenge, encourage, or bring up the issues of their learning. I'll let you take that one as I piggyback and get some water real quick.
Yeah, Chaz, because a lot of times people will make fun of you when you challenge what they say, especially when you don't believe that it's worthy. They get angry with you. And instead of them saying, hey, let me talk about what you're asking me, let's talk about it and let's go into details, they make fun of you. They make it personal. They say something about how you look, what you're wearing, and they take the focus off of where it should be. And this is right out of the old playbook of old school. When you don't know anything, you talk about people. We used to do that all the time. We used to call people nerds. And if they said something, we would say, man, look at his glasses, instead of talking about what the person said. Or we'd say, look at his bell bottoms, look at his stacks, look at his shoes. They don't even wear those anymore. So we're shifting the blame. We're taking the blame off of the learning and we're putting it on the person. And this is where we are today. Now, we call people all kind of names too. He thinks he's a smart SOB. And so, Chaz, I know you have a little bit to say on that one.
Yeah, I was just going to say that shows how immature we are as people when someone is bringing us information. No matter what the information is, if you can't sit up here and take it and listen to it and challenge the brother or sister in love and in politeness, and you take that and you call them names like you said, you talk about his shoes and his clothes, that's immaturity. I mean, we're adults. Now, I could see kids in elementary and middle school doing this. But when you're an adult doing this, brother, that's just total immaturity. And I'm pretty sure there are still adults here that are grown adults that are still doing that. That's why we're having this discussion, and it's a shame. Brother Ray Fire's in here. He says, when I do research to keep myself unbiased, I research to disapprove what I think or believe. That's good. That's absolutely good. That's good.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn, is to go into it and see if you can glean something from what someone else says. That's really, really exciting what he said, because too often when we go in at it trying to prove the other person wrong, or our biases. We bring those biases to the table, and we're not going to change our mind. We're just trying to find out where we can catch someone else in a loophole. And that's a good way of doing that.
Hey, Nuji Fire's in here. She says, peace and blessings, fam. We appreciate her for logging in here. And Brother Ray Fire's behind her. He says, sadly, many Black people become disrespectful and combative when someone disagrees. Some will even scold you being disagreeable. And that's sad. Not Ray, but I'm talking about the people who think that way, where when you tell them something, they get angry and they mock and they scold and they say a whole bunch of foolishness about you. That just goes to show you, not Ray, but the people who think that way, that they're immature, and they're just immature in that aspect, and it's uncalled for. And that's how a lot of fights and stuff start out too. More reasons that many of us adults have given up on learning is, number one, life's challenges. Life has messed them around so much that they are tired and don't want to know anything. Yeah, when you find out a lot of the things that you've been studying is a lie, when you find out some of the things about these presidents and just a lot of things in general are not true, that kind of demotivates you. It makes you want to close in, shut it down, not be bothered, close the curtains, turn out the lights, don't call, don't text. These are things that get us down in the dumps and make us just not really want to learn anymore, because it just feels like everywhere we look, we're getting lied to. So we say, you know what, to fight that off, I'm just not going to do anything, and I quit altogether.
I go back to the 60s, and I know that this is a different era, but it just appeared that back then, brothers and sisters, they really wanted to know what's happening. They wanted to know something new. They challenged each other. They were always looking at different aspects of life to learn, and it was always conversation, people giving each other the high five and slapping hands, giving each other five, and talking about, a lot of the stuff that was going on. But today, life's challenges has messed us up, man. In other words, we've been through so much in our childhood and in our adult life. All those things we've been through, they've taken a toll on us. And now we're at the point now where we're just tired, man. We don't want to learn. We don't want to research. We don't want to learn. We don't want to engage in serious discussions. And so we're just tired. And so we've thrown in the towel when it comes to learning. And now we don't even want to know anything, because when you try to talk to some of us, we'll put our hand up in the middle and say, go on, man. I don't want to hear that crap. And we, this is what we do. And we think that's a badge of honor, but it should be a badge of shame. But that is just terrible, the way many of us adults, especially us African-American adults, how we don't want to know anything anymore.
Letter J. Some feel that since the school system didn't teach them anything, it's now worth trying now. Absolutely. And that's how you can get to a lot of online things where if you Google them, some of these things are free. The school system didn't teach you, because they're not, especially if you're African American, they're not going to teach you about your history. They're not going to teach you about your culture. So that's why you have these other avenues to look up to better educate yourself. And I totally agree with that talking point, that since the school system isn't teaching us anything, we're going to and fro. We're going everywhere to try to find these new information tactics. So that's the way it should be. And I totally agree with that comment.
Okay, Chazz, now let's talk about encouragement. We're going to start encouraging the people. From now to the time we get off this broadcast, we're going to start giving our viewers tips, what to do when it comes to learning, because if we shut this thing off, we got to turn it back on. And here's some of the tips that we want to start giving you.
Number one, make learning practical. Focus on skills that will help one learn. Writing, memorizing, flashcards, if necessary. Absolutely. And I'll even throw in there, and I keep saying this. I know people want to say he's the old Stokey. He keeps bringing this up. A crossword search. You can find these things at the dollar store, Walmart. These are things that are going to help your memory. Even writing, making sure your handwriting's up to par. You don't want to get in your 30s and 40s, and when you have to go to somewhere and write your name, it looks like chicken scratch. These are all things that you should be using to help make yourself a lot better.
And make it practical. Don't go out and try to be a rocket scientist or a neurosurgeon. Just make it practical, like on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis. And we're going to get into some of the basic things we can do, because it has to be practical, Chazz. It can't be like when I say to you, yeah, when I see you again, Chazz, I'm gonna know everything about the solar system. You can't ask me anything without me knowing. No, that's impractical. So just
Right.
make it practical, please.
Right. Yeah, make it basic. I see what you're saying. Number two, know that you are not too old to learn. You're not. As long as you have a brain and you don't have any kind of brain damage or any kind of severe illnesses, you're never too old to learn. It's just up to that individual to actually put in the work, put in the time and effort to actually get the ball going. But you're never too old. There's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s who are sharp. I mean, it
Yeah.
just, like I said, it goes to that individual if they're willing to put in the work.
And stop saying, when someone challenges us with some new ideology or a new concept, stop saying, oh, I'm too old to learn. I would never learn. I mean, I used to do this back in the day, but right now my mind is so foggy. No, your mind is not foggy. You just don't want to sit down and relax and open up to where you can learn. You can learn. You're never too old to learn.
Right. And like I said, as long as you don't have any kind of diseases or brain damages or anything like that, it's no excuse. But the people who use those excuses, like they say, I'm foggy, I don't learn at the pace I used to, that's just a cop-out or excuse because they don't want to get their behinds up and put in the work. Brother Ray fires in here. He says, grab an algebra book and practice doing algebra. It's a very good mental exercise. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to push back a little bit on Brother Ray. A lot of us, the Black African Americans, now I'm not taking up for us. I'm just saying we have a lot of issues with math. And if you do have issues with math, that's why you should go to Google and chat GBT to help you. But this brother is spot on where he's saying getting an algebra book to keep yourself sharp is a good exercise. But a lot of us who are struggling or who have struggled with math throughout these years, we say, oh, no, I'm not doing no algebra. I couldn't do, fifth grade math. And that's not a good idea to have. But that's a good comment, Brother Ray. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Grab a first grade, a second grade science book. Grab a the first beginning introduction to algebra. So, like he's saying, these are things that we can do. Grab something, man. So we want to encourage the people. Do something. Don't sit around and make excuses for not. If you can't do algebra, get you a science book. If you can't do science, get you an English book. If you can't do English, get something is what we're trying to say. So quit making excuses.
I gotta go back to it. The crossword puzzle. I keep going back to that because I use it and it helps. You have to do something, like Brother Ray is saying. Spot on, brother.
Though, man. You outdated, brother. Anyway.
All right. Number 3, host a learn eat gathering. This is an excellent way to get older people together to learn. Yeah, you can get a nice.
I want this one. We always bring in potlucks. We always bring in food to gatherings. We Black people, African Americans, and there's nothing wrong with it, but we just get together to eat and get big. Well, why not take that opportunity and turn it into I'm going to host a learn and eat gathering. You bring the beans, I'll bring the spaghetti, somebody will bring the salad, somebody going to bring the peanuts, somebody going to bring the water. Now, the purpose in getting together is we're going to get together and I'm going to ask you when we're eating, what are you studying? You're going to say, well, Jahi, I've been studying mechanics. I know now, to change oil, you got to, check the oil. And if it's dark, you got to change it and put like 4 quarts in it. Then you're going to say, what have you been learning? Then I'm going to say, well, Chazz, I've been looking at the solar system. I know that the planets have been here for a long time, and I'm going to go into the galaxy, the Milky Way. Then we're going to go down the road, and we're going to have a good conversation. And you're going to ask me questions. I'm going to ask you questions. Why did you start learning about mechanics and all that? So that's going to make that gathering fruitful, because now we're not just eating. We're eating, but we're learning, you see.
Yeah. And I was going to take it. I had a different alternative. I was just thinking, for example, you have friends or family, 4 or 5 of you guys, send out a group text. Say, for example, this week we're going to be meeting at Auntie Sheila's house. And this week we're going to be covering on how to use, for example, social media. And then the next week could be we're going to learn how to do, like Brother Ray said, algebra. And you get together over at Aunt Sheila's for about a couple hours or 30 minutes or whatever. You bring your water, you bring your food and all that good stuff. And there could be a learning. The person who's the sharpest at that top of that subject, teach them for 30 or 45 minutes and have a question and answers. Or in fact, while he's teaching, you can ask, I'm stuck here. Could you slow down, brother? This right here is getting me. And that's how we all can learn. And then after it's over with, you say next week we're going to cover this topic. And then you meet at another relative's or at the library or whatever. These are ways how to get older people out the house as well and to get them to learn, because especially when they get older, brother, we know this, our minds start to get a little bit weaker. So it's always important to stay sharp. Number 4, start a weekly personal challenge with oneself to learn something weekly. I'll let you take that one. I'll piggyback off of it.
Now that is really practical, Chazz. I mean, you can't get any more basic than that. In other words, every week, you don't have to take anything major. Just take something that you're studying, and at the end of the week, you can ask yourself, what have I learned about that subject? And once you say, well, I've learned a few things, a few concepts from this subject, start again and go to another one. If you don't get anything out of that, go back, redo it again until you get it. See, these are the practical ways that people can learn. And this show is not deep. It's deep if you want to look at it. You know, we deal with issues that people don't want to touch. But when I say it's not deep, these are practical ways. These are easy things to do. And if we do this, some of our children would enjoy learning, but they don't see us studying. So they don't want to study because they never see us studying. All they see us doing is smoking, drinking, watching TV, on the cell phone, cussing, fighting, arguing, complaining about bills, complaining about kids. So this is what this thing has to do. We have to start a weekly personal challenge.
Yeah, and I would also add to that on that personal challenge to stick with it, because it's easy for us to be fired up in the moment, fired up for a few days or so, and then by the time that week gets here, we stopped all completely. We say, you know what? I'll put in a few days. I don't have the patience. I'm tired. It's frustrating me. I don't have the energy to do this anymore. So I would just like to add to this comment on the screen here is that to stick with it. Because I know, especially if it's something that we're unfamiliar with, of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it's going to be hard, but you have to stick with it, because I'm telling you, by the time we get to day 7, most of us have thrown that thing all away and said, the hell with it. I ain't got time for it. Brother Ray chimes in. He says they have apps that mentally exercise your brain. And then he also says, every day I try to learn something I did not know before. It gives me something to live for and to look forward to. Absolutely. See, this brother right here is applying himself. He's saying that, you know what? I'm not going to sit around and just be bored and lazy. He's finding all kind of ways to keep himself motivated, keep himself going. He's looking, he's searching. And that's the kind of mindset that you want to have, is always pushing forward, looking for new ideas to stay creative.
Yeah, now this is beautiful, because the part I'm looking at is he says it gives me something to live for and to look forward to. So in other words, he's taking learning and he's using that as a stimulus. He's saying that learning is so beautiful. He says, I live for that. This is a beautiful statement. This is a wonderful statement. This is a magnificent and a marvelous statement, because this gives this new meaning now. He's making it beautiful to learn, as opposed to, as you just said, griping, complaining, and throwing in the towel at day 7. So that was a wonderful insight right there.
It was. Number 5, involve children or grandchildren to learn with you. Ask them to read the same book as you and discuss it when it's finished. Absolutely. If you do have grandchildren or children, you all can, study the same subject. And like I said, I even make this point a few minutes ago, read the same thing or teach the same thing. And that way, when it's over with, discuss it. Because the grandchildren or the children are probably going to have a new avenue to come at it. So where you haven't even looked at it that way. So that way you're constantly learning. You're looking at it from different angles to try to become better. And also to keep you motivated, because they're going to hold you accountable. Hey, uncle, or hey, brother, or hey, cousin, did you read such and such? so you always have a partner that's going to keep you accountable as well.
What a wonderful point. What a wonderful point to involve children. We always talk about how we don't involve children. Here's a golden opportunity for us to learn with our grandchildren and our children. That would be excellent to see a grandmother or a mother or a grandfather or a father or an uncle and some nieces sitting around the campfire, you know, not literally, but sitting around their homes or apartments, talking about a book, chapter 6, verse of chapter 6, the subject about this, and they're going into this thing. This is wonderful, man. If you just take these practical lessons and get off that cell phone, as this one is going to tell us.
Number 5, replace television and cell phone usage with learning instead of scrolling. On this one, I don't know if there's anything really to say, but it's easier said than done. A lot of us, we love these phones so much that we can't do anything without it. We can't, go to sleep without it. We can't wake up without it. And it's going to be hard to tell us to replace these things. So I would say it can start, if you can't do it cold turkey, start off into little minutes where you replace it for 20 minutes, replace it for 30 minutes, and put something in there and replace it. There's something that's going to help your keep your mind sharp instead of just scrolling on TikTok and all these apps all day.
It's almost like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I've never had to go to the Alcoholics Anonymous. I've never been an alcoholic, but they say when you go, you have to admit, my name is Jahi and I am an alcoholic. And then you start the process. You got to start saying, my name is Jahi Osaze and I am a cell phone addict. You got to start that, and you got to bag up from that. But that cell phone is problematic. We don't see the problem with that because we've done it so much. It's a part of our world. We can't. We're asking people to do something that's going to help them grow mentally, but they see it in light of that's not really a good thing because they don't want to turn down the talking on the cell phone because that talking on the cell phone is destroying our minds. We talked about aphasia last week. We talked about aphasia, and this is what is going on now. We don't see it because we're running our mouth. It's like this has been our everyday. Now you have to talk on the cell phone. Do not get us wrong. Right. You have to talk on the cell phone. But we're talking about those who overdo it, those who walk around the house like that. And even when they're not on the phone, you think that they're on it because their hand won't move because it's just stuck like that. When they go to bed, it's like that. When they wake up, it's like that. So it's sad, Chazz. It really is. But here's a beautiful thing to do, though.
Number 6, stop taking your cell phone with you everywhere and take learning material with you. Absolutely. Now, I know, like I said, taking a book, taking a newspaper, taking something that you can read from, like we said earlier, flashcards, all kind of things that can help replace that addiction. Because here's the thing, I know the phone is hard to not take it everywhere with us, but when we stop taking it, it's important to substitute it with something like we said, with flashcards, newspapers, books, all kind of things that help stimulate the mind. Because like you said a few minutes ago, these cell phones are quietly messing our minds up. So it's important to try to replenish that by reading and learning new material.
And when we say this, we don't mean literally, because you're right, emergencies arise, so you have to have your phone with you and all of that. Right. But when you go to the doctor's office and you're sitting there and you're waiting a half an hour, have something to read instead of on the cell phone. Have something to read instead of scrolling on the cell phone. Just put it to the side or put it in the purse or put it in your pocket and do your research. I'm studying now on the subject called abuse because of this production that we have coming up called Broken Glass. But so I have some points that I take with me, and I basically type them up. I printed them off, and now when I go places, I just read that. Now I still have my cell phone, but I have to have discipline, man. I have to have discipline. Yeah. I'll keep reading that wherever I go. When I know I'm going to be there for a while, I always take that with me instead of just taking the phone, because I know if I don't, what I'm going to do is I'm going to really get into that and start looking at that phone and start laughing and snickering because you scrolling, see something funny. And so, what's wrong with you? Oh, nothing. Then you read, what? This is nonsense.
Yeah. And I don't. Okay.
Go ahead. You got something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think I'm get any brownie points for this, but I do this as well. People that know me, of course, I love going to the gym, but I do this as well. Where my cell phone, I don't take it with me every 5 seconds, constantly looking on it. I'm there to do exercise. I'm there to work out. Now, if the phone rings, I stop what I'm doing and try to answer it as quick as possible. But I'm not on that phone taping the workouts, taping everything every 5 seconds. I keep that phone at a distance to where I can hear it if it rings, and then I answer it. But like you said, to keep these cell phones away, and I've done that for a long time here. In fact, I don't get any brownie points and I'm not looking for it. But these are ways on how I'm cutting down my cell phone usage as well, where I'm not on it when I'm at the gym doing things like that because it's not that important. Brother Ray had a comment.
Yeah, I
He
want to put
says,
this up because we have some more comments that I skipped, but this is the latest one. But he says you can find articles that you can read on your cell phone. We're not talking about that. If you're reading an article on your cell phone, we're not talking to you because you're learning. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking to the people who will not find the articles, Brother Ray. They're not going to look on that cell phone. They're not going to look on the cell phone for articles. So in your case, what you said, you can find articles on the cell phone that you can read. So we're not even talking about those types of people. We're talking about people who bring the cell phone and never look for articles, and they got to use it as Linus did on Charlie Brown with the little blanket that he kept with him because he had it as a crutch. These are the ones we're talking about.
Right. And Brother Ray fires in here again. He says, if your child is struggling with a certain subject and you as a parent struggle with it too, you and your child can learn it together. Absolutely. And listen, we got to have patience with these children. We have to say, no, because here's the thing, brother. When our child or a nephew, whatever, isn't learning at a rapid speed, they're not catching the material quickly. We get frustrated, we're angry, we start cussing, we start irate. Yes, that kind of thing. So you have to say, you know what, if we both, like this Brother Ray said, we're struggling together, take some time out, and we both got to have patience with each other. And then that way we can keep this going. Because listen, when you get angry at a child, that's going to make them shut down. That's going to make them quit going and give up. So you're making it worse when you're constantly bickering and beefing with them when you don't understand the subject. But good comment, Brother Ray. We appreciate that. And then he also chimes in. He says, the best thing you can do for yourself is to learn how to self-educate yourself properly. Absolutely. So that way you don't have to always worry about someone getting over on you, because a lot of these people, some of these teachers, they're not going to teach you the correct way. They're going to leave things out. Sometimes they're not going to give you all the information. So that's why you need to learn it for yourself. And that way, when you find a loophole or you find a mistake, you can catch on to it and teach yourself that instead of always relying on someone who sometimes doesn't always have your best interests. Sister Barbara Fires in here. She says, I've been really going ham on the script that I'm reading for an upcoming production. And because I don't exercise my brain enough and put down this phone, it has been a challenge and a learning experience. I want to read books more often to gain knowledge and confidence.
That's the right attitude.
Piggyback it because I'm running my fat mouth.
Yeah, that's the right attitude right there, Chazz. The people that watch adults only, they may not have everything that they need. They may not be, all that. But what they do, that they're honest, man. And that's the right attitude to have, because you got to have that attitude of you accept the fact that you're not where you should be, but yet you're going in the right direction. And that's all this broadcast is about. It's just about what Brother Ray says here. Research the origins, and the origins will never mislead you. In other words, when you find something out, go back to where it started. Who started it? Why did they start it? When did they start it? Where did they start it? How does that apply to me today? So these are interrogatives that really they're just so practical, man. This is beautiful, the comments that we have, because this is a very, very important subject matter.
Yeah. Number 7, find a subject that you want to learn more about and use audiobooks or podcasts while doing chores to learn. Absolutely. I do this a lot as well. You can get on YouTube when you're driving around, running errands, picking your kids up from school or going to work. You can play that in the background instead of always thumping that music, instead of always blasting that music. You can always play these in the background while you're vacuuming, while you're doing dishes, while you're cleaning. You can play these things, and that way you're constantly learning. You're constantly keeping your mind sharp. You're constantly on the go. So these are ways as far as you can play them on YouTube. They have an app called Podcast. They got all these avenues you can use to your advantage to keep your mind sharp.
And it definitely says find a subject that you want to learn more, not what I want to learn, but find a subject that you want to learn more about, because you don't know everything and neither do I. So there should be a
Right.
whole plethora of things that we should want to get into so that we can learn.
Number 8, when talking on the phone, teach others what you have learned instead of being messy and gossiping. Oh
Now
man.
that's a good way to use the phone also. If you're going to use the phone, and we all have to use it, instead of running our mouths all the time, a lot of time we're going to cut down on the conversation because a lot of people don't want to hear it. They're going to stop calling you because they know you're going to tell them what you learned, so they're not going to call you. But when you start saying, guess what I've been learning? And when they're going to say what? For conversation piece. You're going to give them this dissertation on what you've learned. And then if they don't say anything, you ask them, you don't have any questions? And then flip it back on them. What have you been learning? They're going to get off that phone, Chazz, real quick because they have not learned anything. But if you're talking about P. Diddy's decision in court, if you're talking about the latest clothes, you're talking about Steve Harvey and all these shows and the latest movie and Jurassic Park and all that, they're going to stay on the phone, or you can talk about somebody's relative. So adults, we got to start taking heed to putting those walls down and turning our minds on, because we have some problems when it comes to this cell phone and just social media and not being able to learn.
Yeah, and it's always going to keep you and the other person sharp to where, for example, when you constantly are exchanging ideas about what you two are learning, it's going to keep each other sharp and you always have something to look forward to. Moving on to number 9, it says, set learning hours weekly. Set a specific time to study, to learn something, then commit to it. Absolutely. I know we all busy. I know we all have jobs. Some of us have kids. We have a busy schedule. I understand that. But there's things when you really want to do something, you're going to make time for it. So make time for it. For example, if you know your work schedule is hectic, you can set it out before you go to bed, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Get it in. And like we said, you got to keep going at it because it's easy to be fired up for a day. It's easy to be fired up for a few minutes, but you have to keep going at this thing. And even if one day you slip up, tell yourself, okay, I slipped up yesterday. Let me get back on it and commit to it.
Yeah, this is like us, Chazz. I mean, we got a lot of issues, you and I personally, and we're not where we need to be. But we set a weekly hour at 6:30 Central Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern. We come on and we commit to doing this broadcast. Come rain, sleet, or snow, every now and then we may have to take off, but you can count on us every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Standard Time. We're going to be doing a broadcast. So we have to be committed to that. So this is all we're saying is set your own hours. And when someone comes over or someone calls you on the phone, ignore that phone call. Once you're done with your study, you call them back and they say, I called you 3 times. Well, I got a set time that I study. Don't call me between the hours of 7 and 8 because I got something I'm doing by way of studying. Then they're going to start respecting that. But what do? We say, Chazz, I'm finna study something. I'm finna really get down. And when the phone rings, we haven't started 5 minutes. We see that thing, we pick it up, and here we go. And 2 hours later, we're still on this thing, and the study is going out the window, man. This is the kind of people we are. This is the kind of people that some of us are.
Yeah, and like we keep mentioning, these cell phones are really, 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 really messing us around. And we got to get a grip, as in myself included, like I keep saying myself too, we got to get a grip on this cell phone usage.
This one right here is really big, Chazz. We got to spend time on this one.
Number 10, make sure that all of your learning applies to you first before you try to push it on others just for the sake of knowing something or appearing intelligent. Yeah, and we all do this, especially if we at a party, we somewhere, we loud, we want to get people to notice us. We want people to think we deep. We want people to think we sharp. We want people to think that we profound and we went to Yale and Harvard, all these pristine schools. And sometimes we don't even have the information. We're just spitting it to make ourselves sound good. But if the people who really knew us challenge us and say, what does that mean? Or could you tell me a little bit more details on that? We'll be embarrassed because we don't know. So you have to make sure that you have the full understanding before you start firing off.
What great profundity. Tonight, we're talking about how many of us adults have put walls up and shut our minds off. We do not want to learn, but we're teaching tonight ways, practical ways that we can get back into learning again. And this number 10, this point is so crucial because we always learn things for others to know, but we have to apply them to ourselves first. And this is why a lot of people don't want to hear what you have to say, because we're so busy trying to tell them about life and what we've learned and how these things work, but yet we don't apply them to ourselves. And this is why a lot of people get angry with us so-called folk that's spiritual or religious, because we're always talking about other people, but we're not practicing what we're teaching and preaching ourselves. But it should apply to us first, Chaz. We got to really internalize this before we want to run around and using, big words so people can say, man, that guy's really smart. But when, like you said, when you ask him, what does that mean? Where did that come from? He's going to be angry because now he's got to put up a shut up. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to shut
up. Absolutely. Number 11. Start telling others about your newfound love learning. Yeah, you can tell them as far as what you're learning new. And it keeps the conversation sharp instead of the same old, like you said, gossiping, talking about people. When you start telling people something new that you found, it may even inspire them to actually pick up something new and to start learning something new as well. So it's always important to keep that conversation going.
If you want to lose some messy friends, now notice I preface that by saying messy. If you want to lose some messy friends that you always flapping or running your gums on the phone, start telling them about what you have learned as far as your newfound love. You tell them, you know what? They go, what? You say, I found me somebody. They're going to say, what? Now they want to really get down into it now. Who's that you found? How does he look? How does she look? I said, no, this is not a person. I'm in love. Well, who are you in love with? I'm in love with learning. What? Okay. What are you talking about? Oh, I just love opening my new book that I'm reading now. And the book is by such and such a person. And it's talking about just atoms. It's talking about molecules. It's talking about, statistics. It's talking about African-American men or women and children. And you go on and on. I bet you're going to lose a lot of friends, Chazz. You're going to lose a lot of friends because a lot of us do not want to be told about something new. Now, when you preface it about a love, we perk up then because we messy. Who is it? Who is it? But when you start saying that newfound love is learning, it's learning. I promise you, if you do these things here, you're going to lose a lot of friends. Now, that's our last point, and we have 3 comments we'll talk about. We'll run this thing out. We'll come back next week. But you said something about a sneak preview you want to give us on some gentleman that was indicted or he was put in jail. Who was this, Chaz?
Oh, man, it's terrible. It's an African-American teenager. His name is Carmelo Anthony. Now, this case happened, I believe, a few months ago, but the gist of it is he was in self-defense, defending themselves. Some white European guy was trying to bully him. And, in fact, Carmelo Anthony killed the man, and I believe he stabbed him. Now, I believe the last time I checked, they indicted Carmelo Anthony. His family's in tears. His family is in pain because it's another statistic of an African-American male in self-defense defending himself from a bully. And the guy wasn't playing with him. I forget the white gentleman's name, but the point is Carmelo was fighting for his life in self-defense. And now the police are trying to throw the court is trying to throw the book at this gentleman. And it sounds like his family, they're just in tears. It sounds like they're going to throw the book at him.
Well, we're definitely going to do our research and we'll bring that up. So if you are out there and you look at this broadcast, you might want to look at some of the things that's going on in that case so that you can chime in, because we always give you an opportunity to say something. So here we go, Chaz. We got some more comments coming in. Let's see here. This is Brother Ray. He's saying this.
Also consider the source. Like, are they credible or not? And see, that goes back, and I'm glad he brought this up because I was going to mention this earlier. A lot of this stuff, like he said, make sure they're credible, because a lot of stuff on social media, they're just doing it for clickbait. They're a new content creator, and they put something catchy on the screen to get you to draw into it. And sometimes these dudes aren't credible. And 9 times out of 10, if they're not credible, they're just saying things to get you to click on their page so that way they can run their avenues and stuff up. But he is absolutely right. You have to consider the source, because if they're not credible, 9 times out of 10, I may not want to listen to that individual if they're known to be lying and, putting up garbage for views and content clicks. Brother Ray he's laughing. He says, I can't stand Steve Harvey. And he also says, sadly, there's so many that think Egypt was in America and that Earth is flat. That is so annoying to witness. Yeah, that's up to them, brother. They have to do the research on, especially on the flat Earth thing. I'm kind of hip to that. On the Egypt in America, I need to do some more research myself. But thank you for that comment. Sister Barbara Fires in here. She says this comment is to Mr. Google, aka Big Brother. That's a name me, Shonda, and I give Jahi. The subjects that you teach at your academy, and sometimes I would just love to sit in your class and learn more about an education that I missed out in school. Yeah. Brother, that's for you. She gave a good comment.
Yeah, man. My students, she said that now. She wouldn't want to sit in my class this summer school. My students are very angry with me because they're breaking down a hydrogen atom, and and they have to look into a microscope, and they have to look at the protons and the neutrons and the electrons and all of that. And they are now they're going to get over it. But I want to introduce this to them when they're young. But they're angry because they've never had to do that. And now they have a problem with me. But, I have to do this because they have to know how everything is made up of atoms and molecules. And, they got to talk about matter, what matter is. They angry because they have to learn the periodic table and how things are put together and what's a liquid, what's a solid, what's a gas, helium, hydrogen. So but yeah, they're angry, but yeah, we try to have fun. But like I said, she said she would like to sit in our class. I don't think she want to sit in on this one because these kids are upset with me, man.
I was just getting ready to say, brother, you got to be a deep teacher for her to want to sit in and listen to this. I mean, you must be really spitting some good knowledge in those classes, man. Brother Ray Fires in here. Brother Ray says, yes, Brother Anthony stabbed him in self-defense. Yeah, Brother Ray, I just hate what they're doing. And once again, I'm constantly getting updates on my YouTube feed, and they are trying to throw the book at that young man. I just hate what and it appears that they got him. I'm hoping something shifts, but Carmelo looks like he is going to spend a lot of his time in prison. I hate that, Brother Ray. Man, that's terrible.
And I can't reiterate it enough. So please, those who's watching this broadcast, and if you know someone that watches it and couldn't watch it tonight, now that's a conversation piece. You call them and you tell them that next week on Adults Only, we're going to bring up the Carmelo Anthony case, and all of us will have something to say. We're going to be as fair as we can, but we're going to call a spade, and we're going to expose the same thing that's been happening for a long time. And we're going to look at all the ramifications and the details of that case, because that's what makes us intelligent. We're not going to come at it messy. We're going to look at the facts, and we're going to look at what happened and what's going on. And that should be a beautiful discussion. Hopefully we have people that come in that have looked at the case. Do not come to this broadcast next week throwing in your 2 cents when you haven't looked at the case, because we're going to ask questions. Are you familiar with the case? No, I'm not. Then why are you saying what you're saying if you're not familiar with the case? Unless it's something that's important that we need to talk about.
Sister Barbara Fires in here. She says, see, I told you, Mr. Google. Brother Ray Fires in here behind her. He also says that's a wonderful microscope and periodic tables.
Yeah. we got to teach our children. We can't ignore the fact that our children are not, and you mentioned it earlier today, our children are not going to be taught what they need to be taught in the public school system. And then when we start our own educational institutions and facilities, we have to be able to teach them things that they can get into that's going to help them as they become older. And that's one of our problems. And I don't want to get on a soapbox, but this is why a lot of us believe in religion. A lot of us believe in religion because we haven't done science. When we start looking at science, we may bag off of religion because science is going to answer a lot of those questions. But because we weren't good at science, or we shunned science, or we never got a chance to get into science, we just fall back on something that we don't know because we want to wish it. But science is very important, and all of us should take a deep dive into science at our own pace, at our own level, because science has so much to offer, but we've just shucked it all of our lives and that's an indication. But as I said earlier, my kids, my students are angry. They'll be okay, but I don't care whether they like it or not. We're going to continue and get through this because I want them to be scientists when they grow up, if they choose to. I want them to look into a microscope and be able to match wits with anybody, but come from an Afrocentric perspective. So that's why it's important, Chazz, that we don't shut our minds down and that we teach our children. Don't you think that it's important that we lead the way in teaching our kids and not give our kids over to someone else when it comes to learning?
Absolutely. And I mentioned it earlier because they're not, when I say they, I'm talking about the school systems and stuff like that. If your child is going to a public school, they're not going to get to the nitty gritty and teach them the things that they should. They have their own curriculum, so they're going to teach them what they want to know. But you as a parent or a godparent, or if you will, that's why it's important for us to teach them so that way they know what's going on and they're not relying on the system that's going to tell them something 9 times out of 10 that's not going to benefit them. So it's important that we are in our kids' lives, giving them this information so that way they're not misguided. Brother Ray fires in here. He says science means to be known.
Yeah, maybe that's the broadcast that we need to do in the future, a whole broadcast on science, because that's going to open up our minds, because science, I'm telling you, it's wonderful, man. Even if a person didn't get into it earlier, even now, I mean, just thinking about just science in general, how to dig, how to research, how to try things, how to put out a thesis, how to come back with a conclusion, how to get a hypothesis. It helps you learn because it's making you research. That's what it's doing. It's not making you say, I believe something because I wasn't there and I don't know. No, it's making you go in there and look it for yourself. So when you come out with the conclusion, you're going to be sure that because evidence is going to be on your side. But tonight's broadcast, Chazz, has been a very beautiful broadcast. And the broadcast has been talking about how many of us African-American adults, we have given up on learning. And we shouldn't be this way. And that's why a lot of us are in the condition and situation that we're in. So we wanted to just give everybody an opportunity tonight to hear us challenge you. But at the same time, we want to give you hope. Don't give up on learning. Always be open to learning new things. Test the things that you have been told. And this is why I am the way I am, Chazz. I have thrown away a lot of my thought process based upon just giving other subjects a fair chance. Because before, I never gave it a fair chance. I just accepted what I was told. I just believed it. Whatever they said, I was yep. But when I put it aside and started researching, and I saw some stuff, I said, I must be a fool. I must be a fool to continue to stay with this stuff that I know is not right and not true when I'm finding truth. So that's one sign of growth, when you're able to look at something that you've been taught for many years and to challenge it. Now, if it stands the test of time, if when you research and you find out that what you're researching, it can't touch that, then you can stay with it. But when you find out that what you have been taught is trash, you take that and you discard it and you begin to stay following truth.
Absolutely. Well said. I'm glad, like you said, that you had enough self-awareness to catch that something seemed off, something didn't seem right. So I'm glad that you caught that and you did your own research. Brother Ray fires in here.
That was an old one. That was an old one. These are the new ones here.
Okay, Sister Mashana fires in here. She says, higher learner. Absolutely. You want to always be learning more and more, growing as much as you can. That's important. And Brother Ray says he loves science. Now I got a question. I'm not good with science, but there's this guy that always I see every day. They say he's sharp, Nikola Tesla. Is he as good as they say that he is, or was he a fraud? Because I think he told me once that some of his stuff was fake.
Yeah, you got to really watch it. But one of the scientists, astrophysicists that you want to look at is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now he has a European wife, but the truth of what he's saying, you test that. He's really good, man. He's just one of many. But it's one of those things where you have to do your own research, no matter what people say. And this is what I'm teaching my kids. Even though I'm teaching them, I'm making them do their own research, and that's what they don't like about it. They want me to give them all the answers, all the solutions. No, find out for yourself, and that's going to make you a better person.
Sister Mashonda fires in here. She says, Shem Hotel Bros. We appreciate that. Thank you for logging in. And Brother Ray fires in here one last time. He says, love and peace to you all. We appreciate that, Brother Ray, for chiming in. Thank you being here.
Okay, Chazz, I'm gonna let you take us home because you can close out. You've been on the road today, so I'm gonna let you finish us off, and I'll see you next week, man. So take us home.
Thank you for all the viewers who logged in today. We appreciate you. Tonight's broadcast was important. It's about basically applying ourselves with some of these practical tips on how to get rid of the cell phone, how to honestly learn how to become a better person with learning more, eliminating the cell phone as much as possible, and trying to say, you know what, I have an addiction. I'm going to replace the cell phone with some new learning materials and try to keep my mind sharp as best as I can. That's pretty much all I have for tonight. Once again, I thank all the viewers who took time out of their busy schedule to watch us tonight. Take care and hope to see you guys next week.